So moving on to Crazy Mark Trumbo, as he's now been named on this show. Uh, Believe it or not, Trumbo is almost identical to what Stanton is, only more reliable. Think about that for a minute. He's got 47 homers last year in the career rejuvenating Camden Yards. I'm curious, does he go the Nelson Cruz route, say, thank you very much, Baltimore, but I'll see you later, and leave, yet maintain his refound power stroke? That's what I'm curious about. He's the outfielder 12 off the board right now, which is four behind where Stanton's going, 54th overall, which again is four behind where Stanton's going overall. And like I said, you're getting pretty much the same stat line, only a guy that's doing it on a more consistent basis and has actually achieved nearly 50 homers at least once in his career now. So what's your take with Trumbo?
I think it depends where he lands. He's the kind of player that if he ends up landing in, Seattle, some sort of a pitcher's park. We've seen this before. We've seen some bad seasons from Trumbo. So I really want him to stay in Baltimore. I think the thing, that's hurting his value in real life baseball terms, in terms of the market team signing him, he's got a qualifying offer from Baltimore. So there would be a draft pick compensation due back to the Orioles from whatever team signs him, depending upon who signs him. The pick could be relatively high. I think it could turn out to be a first rounder. I'm not sure if I'm an owner, I want to do that for Mark Trumbo because, the power is great. He's a guy that if you can get him relatively late in your fantasy draft, I'd be all over him. Last year was the year to draft him. I don't think this year is. If you can get him in a trade, something like that, that's different. I'm not saying don't own him. He's not a guy that I'm going to draft, though. I just think he's going to go too early. There's too much risk. We've seen the down years from Trumbo. If he stays in Baltimore, I like that. I think his value is a lot higher. If he goes to some place like Colorado, which has been mentioned, oh my goodness. I mean, it'd be like if Chris Carter goes to Colorado. We've heard those rumors too. Oh my God. When you get a guy like that in a ballpark like that, his batting average is going to go up, which has always been sort of, one of the issues with Trumbo is he's not great with batting average. If it's an OBP league, Trumbo hurts you there. Obviously, if you're just playing in a standard 5x5 sort of categories, Trumbo's got more value because he hits tons of homers. And certainly he's a much better investment than Stanton. I think the talent with Stanton is obviously better when you watch just as like an evaluator. He's the better player. But at the end of the day, I'm probably more likely to own Trumbo based on where he goes, number one, and where he goes in your draft. Though at the same time, don't overdraft Trumbo. He's still not a guy I'm going to take in maybe top 60 players off the board.
Yeah, ironically, his poorest hitting performance was his short time in Arizona at Chase Field, which is supposed to be a hitter's haven. So that's kind of the irony with Trumbo in his career. I personally think he's a great buy for this season, especially if he stays in Baltimore. If he does wind up going to Colorado somehow, I think you could expect his ADP to jump a full 10 places just on what people are going to project for that. I think he's done it consistently enough to prove that I'm not too worried about him staying in the lineup, remaining in the lineup. And if he's in an AL park where he can get some DH days, I like it even more. So I think he's a 30-plus guaranteed guy. He's going to be in the 250 to 270 range. You hope for the higher side of that. And he's going to be approaching 100 RBI. So that's a guy I'm comfortable with having in my outfield. And I think that's pretty much his floor.